In Malaysia, if the people weren't poor, they won't go for the election to support this or that politician. This is why there are so many poor Malays in Malaysia. If the country is really that good, peaceful, stable, there's no need to get worried about changing the government every 5 years. The more the people vote in Malaysia, the more hopeless they get and the more they hope for a new government to make a change. Can the government in Malaysia really make a change? It's really like praying to some gods or something that you get nothing, but only false hope. It's just something like, I pray to win the today's sweepstake, or I hope to win some money in the casino, but in the end, it turns out to be hopeless. People are like gambling chips for the Malaysian leaders and politicians. Last 5 years, hope for the change, voted for him, and because of him, lost hope because life is still getting worse, and now vote again and it will lose hope again and vote again 5 years later. The parties in the government keep on changing until the Malaysians don't know who is really lying and who is telling the truth or bullshitting. Nevertheless, I don't see many Malaysian Chinese interested in the election or excited to go to the polls. The Chinese don't even bother despite about a quarter of them being Chinese. But the funny thing is that there are still some Chinese in Singapore more interested to see the fight instead. Just because those Singaporeans are also as pathetic as those Malay voters in Malaysia too, or they are just unhappy with their life in Singapore. They just like live in fortunes but don't know what is fortunate for them. They are so much influenced by some Singapore oppositions or separatists that they could even become anti-Singapore government but pro-Malaysia government Singaporeans. They just want to see Singapore fall into the wrong hands of leaders like Mahathir. However, whatever, the Malaysia election is just crap. Totally crap. Mahathir has resigned as a prime minister so he can detour away what he promised to Malaysians that he would end corruptions. But what we see now is Malaysia getting even worse. The Malays getting even poorer with more corruption. And now he's back as a candidate, bullshitting in Langkawi. He is a total ridiculous, shameless old man who's actually the one robbing the Malaysians all this time. He resigned as prime minister but then come back to the campaign, and maybe later we'll say things like, it's the people who want him to be the prime minister again, so he has to become the prime minister again. So is he hoping to become the prime minister for the third time, to have his name carved in the Guinness World Record before he can die in peace? And later, maybe who knows, he become the prime minister in the metaverse for his funeral. Too bad for him, his campaign has totally no show, empty seats all over. It's so embarrassing for that old man. If Malays are not poor, how can he and his lackeys become fatty rich? The logic is, if there's no poor Malays, then no Mahathir. If there's Mahathir, the Malays will always be poor. This is why there are so many poor Malays in Malaysia just because of him. And about those young people who are 18 years old who has become eligible to vote, do you know why? This is because more and more old people are getting less interested in the corrupt election, so that the government came out with this kind of devious amendments to whip up more voters. They are targeting the young people, especially those who are living not well, poor families or job. Those young people are much more easier for them to manipulate than the old people. Ever heard the saying that when I was playing balls, you are still drinking milk? To put it in a simple but crude way, the old forces in the government are just exploiting more naive people for the campaign after making use of the poor Malays. Right? Remember, subscribe, like and share. Ciao.